Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rem and Sam podcast. It's me again. It's that time of the NBA season, and I guess it's that time of the podcast season as well, too. Teams are resting their star players. It's load management time finally for the NBA season. And Sam, I guess it's Sam's game off this week. So load management for our guy Sam. Shout out. He is out this week. I don't know if are we gonna have to make Sam do a solo episode next week? Just to is next week our game to take off? Do we get is Anthony Davis one? I mean, you know the rules now in the NBA. You can't have both star players take a week off. And I guess that's always been the rules for the Rem and Sam podcast. So we'll see what happens next week. But stay tuned because we've had a couple of good guests the last couple of weeks, and we have a couple of more exciting people booked in the future. So you guys are going to want to follow the feed. Rem and Sam on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, just any social media platform you guys can think of. We're on there. We're Rem and Sam podcast. We're gonna be there if you guys can find it. And there is still a couple of things to chat about. And we're still, we're entering a pretty stacked sports weekend here. Last night, we're recording this Friday night. So last night, Thursday, we got the start to the Sweet 16 for the men's side of the bracket. We got the women's side going tonight as well, too. We've got the men's going. We've got Iowa playing tomorrow, playing today. If you guys are listening to this on Saturday, or is that a Sunday game? Sunday game. Let me double check. We got Iowa versus Colorado for the women's Sweet 16. That's Saturday. So if you guys are listening to this when it drops Saturday, that will be today in the afternoon. Iowa versus Colorado, and already a little bit of drama on the women's side earlier today. I think Notre Dame went down to Oregon State. So shout out to Oregon State. We still had a little bit of Oregon State stock left over from the football season. Shout out DJ Uyunglele and the men's team for making a run in the Pac-12 this year. But the women's team as well, too. Advancing on. So I guess, they're doing the Sweet 16. So I guess they're going, shout out to Oregon State for going to the Elite Eight. And was that going to be a potential Stanford matchup? I think let's see who Stanford's got next for the women's side of the bracket. Because I think that would have been, forgive me if I'm wrong, because I don't have the women's bracket memorized off the top. We've got Stanford losing to NC State right now. So that was the 2-3 on that side. So I think I'm wrong because that Oregon State Notre Dame was a 2-3. So let's get the official women's bracket pulled back up here and see what the correct aligning of games is. Because, like we said, we had some potentially some stacked player matchups on the horizon. Cameron Brink being one of them. I know eventually we could have gotten a Cameron Brink versus South Carolina Final Four, but at the time we're recording this, it is in jeopardy. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens. I think was that a third quarter in the time we're recording this. So we'll see if we're able to get to the end of the game or not. And right now, at the time where we're recording this, I mean, you guys will know the results, but Purdue is starting to pull away a little bit from Gonzaga in the second half. And it looks like NC State is going to take down Marquette. Marquette's pulled within single digits. It's 6 minutes left in the second half. So we'll see what happens. And, being the NBA guy, just looking in on college this year, for this year specifically, well, I'll just make a semi-hard promise. Pause. A semi-hard promise now that to recommit to the college basketball season. Michigan's got Dusty May. Shout out to the Florida Atlantic. And we were just saying as well, too, when we were doing the bracket, that Florida Atlantic was one of those schools that we had stock in, just the school in general, the football program. Had a little bit of a down year this year, but it's been an interesting program to monitor in the past. And we get the basketball coach headed to Michigan and already seems like a fantastic guy. They were in the tournament this year. I mean, they made the Final Four 2 years ago, an incredible run. And that tournament now looking back, crazy tournament with the way the lower seeds were able to advance the way they did. And we're seeing a little bit of a correction this year on the men's side too, with some of the higher seeds advancing the way they are. And it's been a fantastic tournament the way it's been shaping up. But I think there was a quote where he's like, they were asking him about his day, and he's just, he eats, sleeps, drinks basketball. All he does is just, he lives, his diet is just coffee and 2-3 zone. So, I'm really excited to see what Dusty May can bring to Michigan and to recommit to watching the college basketball season next year. But it looks like Oregon State is going to be matched up against South Carolina. So, tough matchup for our Oregon State. They actually did it is. Do we have to call the Oregon State athletic department and talk about the name for the school if the women athletics program is gonna be on the forefront of success here for the athletics department? Stanford and NC State. Shout out to NC State for making runs on both the men and the women's side of the bracket. I think as of right now, though, everything else stands kind of as chalk. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on in March Madness and with what's going on around the NBA as well, too, because like we were saying, recording this Friday night, Thursday night, there was only 2 NBA games. So this is a stacked NBA night. We've got a very interesting Clippers Magic matchup that is into the fourth quarter right now, and the Clippers are still maintaining a lead, though the Magic are being frisky. And we've got Wembanyama going at New York. Well, Keldon Johnson really is taking it to New York tonight. 14 points. Wemby is up to 10-8 with a block already. 1 block, and it's almost halftime for Wembanyama. We got it. Come on, Wemby. We got to pick it up a little bit. Now, shout out to Wembanyama for the run he's on. And this would be a quality win versus a quality Knicks squad. Brunson's going crazy. 9 of 15 for 21 in the first half so far. And we've got Indiana trying to maintain a lead over the Lakers. So crazy stuff going on in basketball all over the basketball universe right now. We'll do our best to do. This is gonna have to be a live watch along episode. Make no mistake. Without Sam here, we're just gonna have to see what's going on with these games and keep checking out. And that's gonna be a lot of what's going on today. Is live watching what's going on in the background. But one of the pieces of news that we were going to discuss with Sam, and I think we'll just go ahead and mention it now, but we had some NFL rule changes this week, and I think it's fair to say some dramatic rule changes. I mean, we'll get into what we think about it for sure, but regardless of what you think about it, definitely dramatic rule changes. And we've got a rule change to the kickoff and a rule change to the defense. As you guys all know, the NFL has outlawed the hip drop tackle, and that's the simple version of it. But we'll start with the positive side of the rule change, and that is the kickoff rule. And let me see if let's pull up the specifics here of the kickoff rule, because they're borrowing this from the XFL, and I believe they're copy and pasting the exact same kickoff format. And I'm not going to lie, I'm trying to think about how much XFL I watched. If I even watched it, was XFL the one on ESPN? I don't even know. We'll see how much USFL we end up watching. I feel like that's got to be starting up soon. Let's check. Or is that USF? Is it USFL? I know when they merged, they changed the USFL and the XFL. Pardon, they both merged, and yeah, they're the UFL now. So are we fully committing to the Blackhawks, the St. Louis or Battlehawks? Whoa, I don't know. IT, bleep that out. Don't cancel me. Are we fully committing to the St. Louis AJ McCarron, Wade Phillips, Saquon Barkley? I don't know I forget who's on that team, but seemed like a pretty stacked team when we read the names in one of the piercing truths. Stay tuned. That's why you guys got to follow Rem and Sam. You got to follow Rem and Sam for piercing truth, because we're giving you insight on the UFL schedule, which will be starting Whoa, tomorrow. So today, when you guys are listening to this, yeah, March 30th, are we going to be checking out UFL football tomorrow? We'll have to see. It's going to be on. It's going to be on before the March Madness games. We've got Birmingham Stallions. Oh, and we've got the Battlehawks playing. I think we might be watching the Battlehawks. I think you guys just figured out what we're going to be doing while you're listening to this. The start of week 1 of the UFL season. We've got Birmingham Stallions versus Arlington Renegades, St. Louis Battlehawks, Michigan Panthers, DC Defenders versus San Antonio Brahms. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Oh, that's a Sunday matchup. The Memphis Showboats versus the Houston Roughnecks is also on Sunday as well too. And it looks like we've got a little ESPN Fox combo. This is interesting. I don't know why it seems like we're a little bit more interested in the alternate football leagues than usual, but we may check out week 1 and see how it goes. Give it a shot. But the NFL is borrowing the kickoff rule from the XFL. And to be exact on what is happening, so the kickers will be kicking off from the opposite 35-yard line, kind of like normal. But instead of the defenders lining up next to him, and then the return team way downfield, and both the teams running to each other, medieval war style, charging into battle, the kicking team is going to line up on the opposing team's 40-yard line. So they're going to be across the field on the 40-yard line. And then the receiving team, they're going to have their players lined up 5 yards away on the 35-yard line. And the receiving team will also have 2 returners in what's going to be called the landing zone. At least I'm reading it. It's going to be, at least what I'm reading is referred to as the landing zone. And that's going to be from the 20-yard line to the end zone. And to be honest, that's the first time I'm actually reading what the rules are. I've actually, more watched the videos and just seen it. I guess am I more of a visual learner? I guess it's just easier to be a visual learner now with YouTube versus pulling up an article and reading what the rules are. But yeah, instead of the charging into battle like it's been all of these years, we're going to have the opposite teams lined up 5 yards away. And I believe they're not able to run until the ball is received by the returner. And I got to be honest, I kind of like this. I'm going to enjoy watching this. I'm going to enjoy seeing what this looks like. And I don't really know if it's going to work. And the point of it is ultimately to reduce injuries and incentivize. I think, to be able to reduce injuries and incentivize returns, because the special teams game, especially the last couple of years, has been, I don't want to say reduced to nothing, obviously, but definitely been less dramatic. And there's been a lot less action there with the way the rule changes have been happening. And Marquette is closing in on NC State, down by 7 now. Purdue still looking like they're going to put Gonzaga away. The thing is, Purdue's just a much better three-point shooting team this year. And Zach Edey hasn't even really done anything this game. This would be an impressive win, because the thing is, like we've been tracking the stats, Zach Edey has played well in the tournament when they've gotten him the ball and when he's, been out there. So if they're actually able to win a game and he's not putting up the numbers, that's a good sign for when you're trying to win the title. I mean, good sign. We're past looking at the signs now, obviously, in the tournament, but that's the sign, I guess, of a team that is championship caliber when you're able to pull that kind of performance off with your All-American. But I am going to enjoy seeing what this kickoff rule does for the return game, because it is going to, I think, if it makes the game safer, well, not just if the game's safe, but when, and all that, the safety of the game is the priority. The number one, the safety of players. So it's okay, that's obvious. Setting that aside, I think this is really going to make the actual returns themselves much more interesting, because the way just the way the old blocking setup. I mean, you guys know from playing Madden, but just watching it and looking at the stats and all that. I mean, it is hard to get a kickoff return. What the league leaders were a couple of touchdowns a year. Let's see what the most in one season is. Should I know this off the top? Is this like an obvious NFL trivia question? Who the most kick return touchdowns? And we're not talking kick return and punt return because there's no change to the punt return rules. It's just the kick return rules. And if I'm not mistaken, there is no change to the onside kick rules as well. There is just changes to the actual kickoffs themselves. So most kick return touchdowns in a season, two guys, and it's four kick return touchdowns in a season, Cecil Turner and Travis Williams, and then a whole bunch of guys with three, a whole bunch more with two. And both of those guys, Travis Williams, 1967, and Cecil Turner, 1970. And some of the more recent guys with three, you've got Josh Cribbs, 09, Andre Davis, 07, Jacoby Ford, 2010. You've got Naheem Hines with 2 and 22. Keeney Nagum, I'm not even going to try to say my apologies to this Minnesota returner who got 2 return touchdowns in 2021. He's on Minnesota and he had 2 kick return touchdowns in the 2021 season. If you guys want to look him up. My apologies. I don't want to butcher your name. Cordero Patterson with 2 in 2015, with 2 again in 2013. Who was the most recent guy with 3? Okay, yeah. So Jacoby Ford in 2010, almost 15 seasons ago now, was the most recent guy with 3 return touchdowns in a season. And just to look up what the most kick return yards would be in a season. Oh, Marte Jenkins in 2000 for the Cardinals had 2,100, almost 2,200 kick return yards. And then Josh Cribbs in 07 for the Browns had 1,800 kick return yards. So I think this is just going to make it almost more like an actual running play, because the way the blocking schemas line up, and the distance between the running back and the returner, all that, it's still a different dynamic, obviously, but I think it's going to be more like that. And I think some of the videos I was watching, the kick return does come out to the guys getting to like the 30 to 35 every time. So there is some stuff where it's like, okay, the way you're shortening the field, what's that going to do for the offense? I mean, they're trying to probably, they're not going to be against anyways, increasing scoring in some capacity and having more offense. But are you having more offense by shortening the field? I mean, that could be, we'll see where that plays out as well too. But I think the ability for a guy to break a kick return touchdown, I think we could see, some more multiple kick return touchdown performances than I guess, we're looking at here. It's even more rare than I would have assumed. I would assume we would have had a couple of guys getting, at least 2 in a season, but yeah, only 2 over the last handful of years. So I think it has a real chance to make that element of the game much more exciting. And if it can make the game much more exciting and safer as well too, I mean, that's a double win, obviously. So the NFL has, when the NFL is making these rule changes, they're not just making them based on one season. And that is something that I have to keep in mind too. And I'm not defending the NFL in making all of these rule changes. It's always tough to be the guy that sits up there and tries to defend the league or the owners, but they do look into this stuff, and there is, processes involved, obviously. So this not just keeping that in mind for the kickoff rule, but for the hip drop tackle rule. I think that is something, again, important to keep in mind, because when you hear about what the hip drop tackle is and you start seeing the pictures of it, and obviously real educated football people that are super locked in, and I think even casual people as well too, have known about this type of tackle and the injury risk that it can cause to the offensive player. And it's been going around for years. So again, that's when I say the NFL is looking at this stuff, it is not just, okay, one or two injuries happened over the last couple of years and they're making a rule. It is, hey, we've probably been looking at this for a decade. We've been going over it, making adjustments, trying to figure out the best way to do this. Maybe there is even, I don't know if there's a way to start training before you. And I mean, I probably wouldn't be a smart thing to do, but there is, again, processes involved. So I got to be honest, like overall, I do think this is going to be really rough at first, but if this is, actually a thing that needs to be eliminated out of the game, then it's like, okay, the players will adjust, technique will evolve, and eventually we'll be watching the game and we'll be used to it. It'll be normal. The players will be used to it. The helmet to helmet stuff and some of the we'll just, the overall physicality stuff, some of the contact penalty, I guess they're all contact penalties, but some of the like the head to head stuff and the personal foul, the unnecessary roughness penalties that they were implementing over the years to help clean up some of the concussion stuff. I remember like when those rule changes were initially being implemented and that stuff was starting to switch over, fans and players were both like, well, this is going to ruin the game. The NFL, this is tackle football. The guys are out there. They're taking the risk anyways. You've got to let them take the risk. And, you go back and you watch the highlights and you watch the way we play the NFL now. And it is like, okay, some of the helmet to helmet stuff and the way they clean that up, it's like that stuff did need to go. And it's like defenseless receiver. You don't necessarily have to lay that guy out leading with your head, hit him in your head. You can figure out how to tilt and adjust and hit him to the side. That's a lot of the stuff that was changed too, more so than the guy just running down the field, even though we do see that called. But the guys were able to adjust to that. And so like if this hip drop tackle definitely could be that. But one of the reasons that I think this is going to be tough to officiate and why it's just going to be interesting to track where this eventually goes, because I know with the kickoff rule, they had like a 1 year, trial period with it. So I don't remember exactly if they had that with this hip drop tackle rule, but I'm it's not like it's not like they can just, it's not like this stuff's set in stone. I mean, if it's disastrous, they can go back and change whatever they want. But one of the reasons I think this will be interesting to track is because I think the reason this hip drop tackle, and I don't want to say has become more prominent over the years, because if you look, you can go back and look at the highlights, and there's definitely older clips of guys going down and getting injured because of this style of tackle. But one of the reasons I think one of the reasons I think it's going to be interesting to call and interesting to track is because I think this type of tackle is almost encouraged now in a response to those type of head-to-head and unnecessary roughness type penalties, where if you look at, again, like fundamentally what the tackle starts out to be, it's a guy wrapping up two hands around the waist. Actually the tackle starts as like a super fundamental tackle, and it's what you want a guy to do. So the secret to the rule change itself and what they're going to be calling is when the defender, gives up, like goes weightless and start to try to drag the offensive player down. And that's where the defender can start, landing on ankles, and where knees and ankles and ligaments and stuff start going. And that's where, if you start watching the highlights, you can kind of start, when you keep that in mind, you can kind of go, okay, I can kind of start to differentiate a little bit of what's going on. But again, I think it's actually kind of been like, this is kind of what we wanted our guys to be doing. So if it's like, hey, now no longer, you can't just like drop dead weight and drag the guy to the ground. You actually have to finish the tackle wrap up. Like, again, we can go, okay, hey, the guys can just adjust, and the guys are going to learn, and the fans are going to learn. And there's just in 3 or 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, the league is just going to be going on business as usual, and nobody's going to notice. But again, I think it is kind of in response to that physical, trying to take out some of the physical play in the game. And if you go through and actually watch some of the games and are focused on, okay, if you actually have to call this as a penalty, when are you throwing the flag? Because that's one of the things that I was curious too when I saw that this rule change was being implemented was, okay, let me go actually like fire up a game and track how many times is this going to be an issue? Because again, as you're going through and you're looking at it, you're like, this could potentially be rough to call. But how many times is a ref going to be in a situation where he's going to be forced to make that kind of decision? So let me see if I can get some highlights here. Should we just do the Super Bowl, this last Super Bowl, and see? I don't want to pull up a full game. Let's just see if we can pull up I was trying to watch like a full condensed rerun of some game, but let's just see if we can do like the supercut highlight package on YouTube. Because again, once you go through and look, it is kind of interesting to be like, I think I could see where the refs could get in trouble. Should we do the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl? Should we do the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl since Sam's not here? No, if he does a solo episode next week, he's going to do the Colts Saints Super Bowl. He's going to do the Jets Colts Super Bowl, Super Bowl 3. I wasn't even there for that one, and I still feel salty about that. I mean, of course, Joe Namath is going to guarantee the victory. He's playing in the game for the team. Broadway Joe, he's a brash guy. He's just all of a sudden going to be humble in the moment. He's like, no, actually, it's the Super Bowl guys. Great opponent. I think they're going to be tough. Okay, let's see actually how many times the hip drop tackle could have been called in some of these highlights between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Okay, let's actually check the tape and see if this is going to be an issue. Because the game I was watching, I was like, okay, this could be interesting. So we've got Devontae Smith just checked out of bounds on the sideline by Justin Reed. Is that Justin Reed? Did I get that right? Definitely no hip drop there. So we've got Hurts. Sorry for our audio listeners. This is definitely a visual component. Again, going to the sideline. Philly out of bounds. Maybe some teams teach their guys, out of bounds versus getting tackled. Okay. So that one there, Goddard jumps up for the pass, and Justin Reed definitely grabs him around the waist and drags him down, but I don't think that would be a hip drop there. Oh, now see, that's an interesting one. And to be honest, like just gut reaction, instant reaction, if you want my honest opinion, I don't think that gets called long term. But initially, you've got a guy diving on Devontae Smith. He lands on his lower half. So this is going to be an interesting, element to the hip drop is what does a dive constitute as a hip drop tackle? Where you've kind of get the same thing. You've got him landing on the lower half of the receiver. Is that potentially the same type of injury risk? We'll have to see. Do we need to get an NFL ref on, like a former ref, some league ref associate guy? This is another one. Again, I don't think it would get called long term, but you've got, is that the linebacker or the safety wraps up the runner? So the thing is, you've got another defender with the, help defense, I guess, gang tackling. He's the other defender's wrapping the runner up high. So maybe that kind of negates what's going on a little bit, but you've got the other defender, again, wrapping up the runner down low and dragging him down. And just watching the game, I don't think you would think that this is necessarily a bad thing. And it's a tough one for like, how do you coach the defender out of this here? And McDuffie kind of gets the runner and throws him over a little bit. And this is another component to this where I don't just think this is this is not just a good way to tackle outside of not getting called for a penalty up until this point. But a lot of the reason that the offensive player gets in trouble because of this tackle is because of the offensive player. A lot of the offensive player isn't going down. So the defender is a lot of times, dragging him. Again, like we kind of saw the play out, a couple plays ago with the Chiefs defender. You've got a guy like diving in. You've got the runner, zooming by the linebacker. He's wrapping him up as he is running by. So you've got a runner in full speed versus a defender stopped. And now a defender's got to try to run a little bit to keep up. Different speeds. He might be tripping. Oh no, now he's falling and he's weightless and he's on the defender. Like, is that a hip drop tackle? You've got the linebacker on this play wraps up Kelsey by the ankles, where Kelsey kind of runs through the tackle a little bit. That one, I think we're in the clear. Pacheco, he's not getting hip dropped by anybody. He just runs through the safety. The safety takes it on the chin. Pause. And Kelsey for the touchdown. This is an interesting game. There's, I guess in the highlights, are hip drop tackles not involved in highlight type play? Maybe there's just no tackling in highlights, I guess. The quarterbacks as well, too. It's going to be even harder now to sack a quarterback. You've got like a 4-inch window, pause, to hit the quarterback now. The quarterback needs flags. At this point, just give the quarterback flags. Give the quarterback a red jersey. Teach the quarterback to go down. You can't keep having these like mobile quarterbacks enter the league. The quarterback position is getting more and more dynamic and more, we're having more and more two-way guys in the Mahomes influence, and we're figuring out playing out of the pocket and playing out of structure and all these new trends with the quarterback position. And now you can't tackle him either. He's going to be scrambling and you can't tackle him. Just make a rule where the quarterback has 5 Mississippi and he has to go down. This is another one. You've got AJ Brown across the middle. I think this might be a good one here where you've got the defender kind of continues to drive AJ Brown into the ground a little bit, where he's not necessarily, the defender's not giving up his weight. AJ Brown into the end zone. Touchdown. You forget how close the Eagles were in this one. This was, of course, pre-Taylor Swift. As I don't know if that's the new timeline or not for the NFL, but should we pull up a different game? Should we find the Niners Super Bowl? I'm going to be honest. I was watching the Niners Chiefs Super Bowl, and I felt like maybe it was just the start of that game was just kind of, out of the ordinary, but it felt like that game specifically had a lot of moments where you're like, this is definitely, these guys are going for this type of tackle. And I don't want to sit here and say like, hey, these guys are all going for good fundamental tackles. Because I guess they are, but in a way, again, this has been considered the hip drop tackle. There's a name for it, so it has been considered a risky move in the past. But it did feel like this was a game where that was a little bit more prevalent. Excuse me, but see if I'm wrong. Let me double check real quick. This Niners game tape. Tech jumping over the defender. And again, you've got Bolton wrapping up by the waist and driving into the ground. I don't think you get a penalty on that one. I think we're in the clear. This one right here, this one feels like a prime example of what potentially a hip drop tackle could be, where you've got McCaffrey out of the backfield, that little halfback angle route. That's not Carlisle. Is that Chanel? The linebacker in coverage. See, this is where you got Chanel is kind of at a dead stop and McCaffrey already running out of the backfield gets the cut. That's a disadvantage already for the linebacker just in a route in general, but then you've got McCaffrey with a little bit of a head start. And whoa, we've got thunder outside. I didn't know it was going to rain. Holy cow. But we've got McCaffrey getting the pass. And now Chanel Chanel definitely goes weightless on this play on the tackle, but is this enough to constitute a penalty? McCaffrey, Chanel doesn't necessarily get like doesn't land on his legs or anything like that. I wouldn't say he drags him. Well, he definitely drags him down, but in these gang tackles too, where any gang tackling situation, you're going to have a guy, going for the waist. So that's going to be kind of a nightmare to call. Maybe you just say in those situations, it goes for nothing. And then you get the McCaffrey fumble on the drive to start. But I mean, you got a couple of plays there where what if that is a hip drop tackle on Chanel early in the game, and now that's 15 yards. And now, what happens with the fumble? What happens, all that stuff? What happens if McCaffrey fumbles on that play? Is the fumble still, like if you hip drop tackle a guy, but the runner fumbles the ball, does now all of a sudden, I guess the play's overturned, right? Because it's an illegal tackle. It's like an unnecessary roughness penalty in a way, where now all of a sudden, the fumble doesn't count. The offense all of a sudden is still going. So again, I get if there is enough data out there, and I haven't necessarily looked into the data to say, hey, the hip drop tackle is definitely like, if there's like the 2 or 3 things, most important things to eliminate from the game, the hip drop tackle is one of them. Like that very well could be. And I was definitely seeing some chatter online there were definitely some corners of the internet that believe that to be true. So again, if that is the case, and if the data says this needs to be removed from the game, then like by all means necessary, take it out of the game. I'm not going to sit here and be like, we need to keep old school football because if this is going to make players significantly safer, then we're absolutely like, go ahead and do it. But I think it is going to be interesting to monitor and interesting to see how they tweak and interesting to see how they call this in the first couple of years, because I mean, we all know that again, long term, we will be able to adjust, but the adjustment period, I feel like for this rule specifically, could be a little bit more rocky than some of the other ones. But hey, they gave us the kickoff rule to supplement that. So I think the kickoff rule is going to be, like I said, a good time. And even if it doesn't last, like I just like the fact that they're trying something new with it. And I always like it when the leagues just do something random like that. When the NBA just moved in the 3-point line for a couple of seasons, I mean, just, hey, remember when the 3-point line was like a freaking college 3-point line? Like when the league just switches it up, and especially when they go back, I would almost like it better if they did the rule and then went back to the old one and just like, hey, remember the 2 or 3 years when the NFL kickoff guys had to only run for like 5 yards, and the NFL guys just got the ball at the 40 every time? That'd be the one piece of it where I was like, where could this go wrong? It would be, okay, the kickoff return game in the NFL is actually way better in the XFL. And again, the guys are getting out to the 40-yard line every time. And now again, you're getting a little bit more offense, but you're losing offense in a way because there's just not as much that needs to happen on a drive. But there was some other fun kickoff stuff I was seeing too, not to go back to the kickoff for a second, but like I said, no, Sam, not a lot of topics. We're going to stretch this one out. So there was a couple of other things that I saw with this kickoff in the XFL. I saw some guys running a play. There was like a reverse sweep in one of these games that was pretty interesting. Here, let me pull it up. So this is, I guess this is a good example too, because for, again, the people watching on Spotify or on YouTube, you guys can see what that new kickoff looks like, where you've got the linemen lining up across from each other. And this one, you got the returner flipping it back to a guy on like a jet sweep kickoff. And this is super successful. This one goes back for a touchdown. We've got a guy breaking away. He's going to go all the way. So I think there is some fun stuff that you could potentially do in this new world, this new era with the kickoff rules. You can potentially see some of the more creative guys, get involved. Is our guy Basakia gonna drop some plays? Get in on the X and O's with the new kickoff rule. Our guy Pit Boss Rich. See what he's able to whip up. Shout out to Purdue for managing to move on to the Elite Eight over Gonzaga. It was a much closer game in the first half than it was in the second. And let's double check that NC State score. Yes, sir. It's another. Are we going to get another survive and advance run for NC State? Like I said when we did the brackets, I always get suspicious of the team that makes the dramatic run in the tournament, the conference championship tournament, because it is just a lot of games to win in a row. Like you do have to be a dominant team to pull together. If you go 5, especially for the lower seed teams too in the conference tournament, where you have to win an extra game or two, play yourself in, you don't get a bye week like some of the higher seeds. If you have to go 5 games in a conference tournament, and then if you're going to win the title, win the March Madness tournament, you got to win is that 6 games? I feel like I should know what that is off the top, but you got to win like 6 games. So you got to win 11 games in a double-digit games in a row. I mean, we just saw the Celtics blow a 30-point lead. It's hard to win 10 games in a row in any type of sport. So shout out to NC State for keeping the dream alive. Wemby is, I knew I shouldn't have said anything. The Knicks are storming back. That's what also happens when Keldon Johnson is leading the team in scoring. But Wembanyama is playing a little bit better now. We got Wembanyama up to 19-12. 19, 12, and 7 for Wemby in the third. Are we going to get a Wemby triple-double tonight? Am I going to have to turn off March? I think March Madness is getting turned off. Are we going to get? Do we need a second screen? So subscribe to Rem and Sam if you want us to have a second screen so we can watch March Madness and Wembanyama. Let's get Wembanyama going here for the fourth quarter. Can we get somebody to guard Brunson? Is Holiday available? Probably not at this moment. It's definitely with the trade deadline passed and with the Celtics thinking they can win the title. Do we have to root for the Celtics to get bounced early in the playoffs so they need to make a move and they can trade Drew Holiday to the Spurs? Would that be the move that they would make Drew Holiday? I don't know if it would be, but they do have Derek White there. And could Peyton Pritchard take the Drew Holiday minutes? I don't know. They get some feisty stuff back in return. Maybe we'll workshop it. But like I said, I don't think the hip drop tackle is going to ruin the NFL, but I do think it could definitely it's going to definitely make things messy from an officiating standpoint over the next couple of years. And I would not be surprised if there was a tweak or two as well to it. I don't know necessarily what it would be, but I think it's going to be tough to officiate initially to get a grasp of what they're looking for on that specific penalty. But interesting stuff for the league and probably some of the more, dramatic rule changes that we've had in more recent times. I would be curious to go back and look and see what the more dramatic rule changes were in NFL history, but these ones will be fun to monitor. So I guess the other thing we wanted to mention with Sam, but the show goes on, we'll talk about it anyways. This is going to be a tough one. He's going to miss out on this, but the new Metro Boomin album. And I guess Metro Boomin wasn't the only new album we've gotten recently. We got the Metro Boomin Future album, collab album now 2 weeks ago. And this week, today when we're recording this, I guess at midnight, we got the newest Beyonce album as well, Act 2, COWBOY Carter. So I don't know if Sam will check that one out. He might be locked into that one. We'll see. We'll check in when he gets back and see if that's something that he was locked into. But I know he's listened to the Metro Boomin Future album at this point. Maybe he'll do a top 5 of that one as well too when he's back. So like I said, subscribe to the feed. Stay tuned for Sam's top 5 songs off of the newest Metro Boomin album. But I guess I can give you my top 5 now. And I can give you my top 5 off the newest Beyonce album as well. And when I first heard of this specific Beyonce album being released, I was under the impression that she was doing a country album. Like that was just the very simplistic, easy, I guess, scrolling through the feed version of what I heard this album was going to be. It's Beyonce. She's crossing over into the country genre. And when you hear people doing these genre crossovers, it's just always going to be interesting how they're going to approach it, because especially with her, it's like, are they going to do country? Are they going to take the influences? Like, what does that mean that Beyonce is doing a country album? But after I listened to the album, I was reading a bunch of pieces about it and just a bunch of, quotes that she had, a bunch of interviews she had given about the album. And one of the quotes that I saw was her saying that it was not a country album. It was still going to be a Beyonce album, and it was definitely, going to have themes and be influenced by this, these certain things. And I like I said, I read a bunch of that stuff after listening to it, but while I was listening to it, that's 100% the takeaway that I got, and kind of, what I was, came away from after listening to it was she was like, it's still very much Beyonce, and still like it's not a country album. Like, again, that's when I heard that this was going to be announced. We were getting the Cowboy Carter. It was going to be a Beyonce country album, and you can see the influences, but it's definitely not that. She's still able to keep it in her own taste. And I think for an artist to be able to cross over like that, because I was looking at some of the other artists too that have made that jump into country, where I was looking at, like, I think Ray Charles had a country album, and there was a bunch of other, people, and the switching genres is obviously not new. The Taylor Swift versus Beyonce comparisons, like, Beyonce's kind of doing the reverse Taylor Swift, where we've got Taylor Swift starting out in country, and now Beyonce is, I guess, going back to country a little bit with this newest one. But Taylor Swift definitely more rooted in country anyways to start. But especially as we're, we just are off the year of Taylor Swift 2023, as I guess our pop culture face off kind of said that she was the winner of the year anyways. I, just been thinking about who are the other female artists that can actually pull off what she has just been able to do. Like, who actually has that discography, and who is going to be able to maintain, stick around, be able to accumulate the type of fans. Like, who has the music where you can get all the different generations of girls and then cross over into the guys, and then the different types of subcultures of things, where now you've got Taylor Swift into the NFL and picking up various fans from just different, types of different other fan bases. And Beyonce is definitely, if already on that level. Like we were saying, the arguments right now are kind of, it's her versus Beyonce. But I think, with just going through the Spotify streaming numbers, like, Rihanna is definitely in that territory as well too. Even though if we're talking active artists, like we're saying, Beyonce and Taylor Swift are dropping music right now too. And if we're looking long term, you've got, Olivia Rodrigo off to one of the hottest 2 album starts that I think anybody's definitely had. And I Dua Lipa as well too, just in terms of the streaming numbers. And she gets nominated at the Grammys. So she definitely is, has some awards case as well too. We'll see what the long-term stuff. And then, can these people break into that next level the way Taylor Swift did? But the album of the year thing was the other thing that I was curious to go back and look at too, where that's the big award that she's never won. And it'll be curious to see if I think this album is, I don't want to call it a lock to get nominated at this point, because again, we're still 2/3 ish through the Grammy window. I know it closes a little bit earlier this year than normal, but it is Beyonce, and she's been basically nominated every year. So again, I think the album is a lock for album of the year. But can it win? And we're also getting another Taylor Swift album this year, so I guess they'll be going head to head against each other. And the last album that she dropped, Renaissance versus Harry's House, is going to be the big one looking back, the big revisionist history one on whether or not she could have got that win. But let's go back and look at the other ones quickly that she had, because I know that one from last year is off. I remember that one off the top, but I don't remember what album she was facing in the other years that she had lost at the Grammys. So let me pull up the awards quick and just see what, and we'll go for album of the year as well too, not just like in the pop vocal, the R&B, contemporary, whatever. Like album of the year, she was first nominated for that in 2010 with I Am, Sasha Fierce. So the 2010 Grammys we've got for best album of the year. We've got The End by the Black Eyed Peas, The Fame Lady Gaga, Big Whiskey and Grugro King, Dave Matthews Band. My apologies to Dave Matthews Band. And I Am Fierce. I am Sasha Fierce, Beyonce, losing to Fearless by Taylor Swift. So I guess we'll right away, first year controversy to start. Taylor Swift versus Beyonce. The rivalry goes back a decade. Will this be the year the Grammys flip that and go Cowboy Carter over Dead Poet Society? I'm just assuming right now that Dead Poet Society is going to get nominated for Album of the Year, especially with the run that Taylor Swift has been on. For the 2011 Grammys, we've got, she was nominated as a feature artist on Album of the Year, not for album itself. But 2015 with Beyonce, we've got her going up against In the Lonely Hours, Sam Smith, I guess, is that Multiply? Is that how Ed Sheeran does the titles of his albums? It's Divide plus. So is this Multiply by Ed Sheeran? Girl, Pharrell Williams, Beyonce, Morning Phase by Beck. So I guess this is the real, like, okay, industry, I get what you're doing here. This is gonna be the real bad one looking back, where Beyonce definitely probably should have won this one in 2015. The 2017 Grammys with Lemonade, she goes up against winning for Morning Phase over Beyonce is crazy. She wins or goes up against 7 Years by Lucas Graham. Or no, sorry, that's Record of the Year. Album of the Year, Purpose, Justin Bieber, Fuse, Drake, A Sailor's Guide to Earth by Sturgill Simpson. And she loses to 25 by Adele. So Adele versus Beyonce is always going to be, that's a heavyweight match. But 25 versus Lemonade, I don't know. Lemonade was kind of hype. And I'm surprised the industry just didn't give it to A Sailor's Guide to Earth by Sturgill Simpson. Just him and Morning Beck can hang out at the winner's table. Because, I mean, I guess nothing against Beck. They might want to hang out at the winner's table with Beck. I don't know. Maybe Beck's a cool guy. I bet of all of the Grammy winners throughout history, Beck is the one guy that we might actually be able to get on the pod. I don't know if Beck's like a recluse or not. Maybe he just doesn't do interviews. But I feel like we have a shot. IT, write that down. Let's see if we can get Beck in the future. Like I said, stay tuned for future interview with Grammy winner Beck, who beat Beyonce for Album of the Year. And then I guess 2 Grammys ago now, because we had this past Grammys where Taylor Swift won Album of the Year, but 2 Grammys ago, you've got Voyage by ABBA, 30 by Adele, Un Verano Sin Ti by Bad Bunny, my bad, Mom, and Good Morning Gorgeous by Mary J. Blige, In These Silent Days, Brandi Carlile, Music of Spears by Coldplay, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar, Special by Lizzo, and Harry's House ends up taking the win. So that's a tough one, especially from an in the moment sort of hype versus legacy, what's going to live on, what's more replayable. And Harry's House is definitely incredible. Like, Harry's House is a great album. I don't think it's not Album of the Year quality. And that's a tough battle, Harry's House versus Renaissance. But I think looking back, Renaissance was in the moment like a huge thing. And then her doing the tour, it's kind of insane that she didn't get the love from, I get looking back, it's exactly what Jay-Z was talking about, where he's like, how does Beyonce not get this award when she's hit all the checkpoints that an artist has hit? So I think, with this album, she just, again, continues to just crush it. The album is awesome. When I was just saving songs I play, I basically saved the whole thing into playlists. All the interludes, just put them all in. And I'll listen to an interlude probably more than anybody else. I don't mind throwing that in. Like, shout out to especially like just old school hip hop albums with some of the interludes. I mean, it's fun to just throw them into a playlist and mix it in. You like the interludes on Harlem World. I mean, shout out to Cam and Mace. They're obviously always have been super creative guys, but they always knew how to crush an interlude on an album. And they were doing different things. They were doing skits and talking and stuff like that. And she has like, some musical interludes in here when she definitely had some talking interludes as well too. There's like a Linda Martelli interlude where, she's kind of setting up some stuff. And again, there's, like I said, a couple of other musical interludes as well. But if I had to go for a top 5 off of this album, I would go. I definitely have more than 5 songs written down for all these. Ooh. I feel like, so I don't know if this is a fair number 1, but one of the songs I'm definitely going to be hooked on is the Blackbird cover by the Beatles. And if I'm being totally honest, I didn't know that was a Beatles cover. So when I just listened to the album, I was like, holy cow, this is a fantastic song. And when I was, again, reading all the stuff afterwards, and one of the things I do like to do now after listening to an album, especially, with a hip hop album or, anything, I guess non-hip hop albums too, but I like to look at what has been sampled on the album. And I guess, other albums outside of hip hop do sampling too, but that's just what I'm listening to. But one of the go-to things I look for right after the album is dropped. So when I was trying to figure out if this song was sampled by anything, it was like, oh no, this is actually a cover of a Beatles song. So I mean, yeah, it makes sense. The Beatles are great. Makes sense that it's a great song. And there's a couple other covers as well too. Yeah, it turns out this is a classic, iconic covered song, whatever. I get it. I missed it. I probably should have known that this was a Beatles song. I get it. And especially right now too, if you guys remember a couple episodes back, I was talking about getting more into the record player. I feel like I'm trying to educate myself a little bit more with the older music. That's why I'm trying to look into what is being sampled as well too, because that's a good way to do it. So I get it. I feel like I missed it by not knowing it was a Beatles song. So I don't know if that counts, but that is definitely going to be a song that is heavy in the rotation for a while. Oh boy, I don't want to say. I guess do we just have to go like do we just do Tears? Do we switch it up into Tears? I have Sweet Honey Buckin' written down next. Shout out to, is it Shabuzi as the feature on that? And I like what she did with the features as well too. Obviously, giving representation. Blackbird was a perfect example of that, of giving representation to the underrepresented. And that's one of the things that she is really crushing with the last couple of albums that she's been putting together. And I think especially when you're looking at her legacy as an artist, that's kind of why the award things is shocking. It's not just shocking that the award thing hasn't happened. It's like, yeah, I mean, it is shocking, but it's shocking that she hasn't needed to even win that award to be if she just, let's just say she retires after this album, like NBA style, she could go down as one of do you make the argument greatest artist of all time? I mean, shout out to our guy Frank Sinatra, but greatest female artist of all time. Like, the case is definitely there without even winning that award, because again, the music itself is transcendent, but I think what it's meant for the culture, what it's meant for these other groups, and the way she's able to just elevate the people in her sphere and the things that she highlights, I think is maybe that's just not even just compared to other female. That's just across the board in entertainment, something that she does. You could say she's an A+ tier 1 of that. And it's one of the reasons that, she's a special star. But again, Blackbird, fantastic example of that. And crushed it with the feature on Sweet Honey Buckin', crushed it with the features from Miley Cyrus and Post Malone as well too. Can we like put those together in like a combo spot in the top 5? Because again, as somebody who was crossing over, and she said she's not doing a country album, so we get it. You're not fully crossing over to the country, but as somebody who's taking those country influences, I thought it was interesting that she picked, stars that were kind of doing the same thing. We've got Miley Cyrus with country in their mix. Post Malone, Post Malone is crossed over into a lot of different genres, so he can do basically anything. But I like that she went that way as well too, especially when we're talking into the people that have done it in from the pop space as well too. Both those guys have Post Malone, hip hop, pop, rock. Like again, he and Miley Cyrus, I guess too, can kind of get into any genre as well. Let me see. Oh, excuse me. If Miley Cyrus has any like hip hop features. Because I'm going to be honest, just off the top in my playlist, I don't think of a ton that she's been on. I guess she's in the new Beyonce one now. Shout out. But and this recent album she dropped. Obviously she herself has classic songs and classic songs she's featured on. But I guess she's on the Montero album with Lil Nas X. If that kind of counts. I don't remember if that got nominated in like a hip hop or R&B or if that got nominated at all or whatever. But I don't think, she hasn't necessarily crossed over into the hip hop world big yet, but I feel like she could. I feel like she definitely could. Obviously she could do like a hook or whatever, where just, whatever those like inner change, those inner between parts of the verses are. Like she could definitely pull that stuff off. But I think, a Miley Cyrus poppy verse on a feature verse on a hip hop song, I think she could definitely cross over into that genre as well too. So really like what Beyonce did with the features. Levi Jeans and Most Wanted were the song. Levi Jeans had Post Malone. Most Wanted had Miley Cyrus. Sweet Honey Buckin' and Two Hands to Heaven were two of like, I guess like new Beyonce song, not covers, because she covers Jolene as well too on this album, as well as Blackbird. So non-cover, no feature. Those, I guess, no, Sweet Honey Buckin' would be a feature. We have to put that in the feature category. No feature, Two Hands to Heaven. Let me double check if that was a no feature. I guess that would be would that be our number one no feature song? Well, I guess Texas Hold'em has to be on the list as well too. That song is already almost at 250 million streams, and that song was dropped like a month of 6 weeks ago. Looking at the calendar, so there are songs that are like have been around and are classic songs that are already in that range. So that just kind of shows you, I think, what this album is gonna altogether end up being. But Texas Hold'em, no features. What was the other one I was looking for? Two Hands to Heaven was no features as well too. So I guess those would be the best no feature one. And I really like the first and the last song as well together. I guess that's like another combo spot. The first song on the album is American Requiem. Did I say that word right? Requiem? American Requiem? I think Requiem is how you say it. And Amen is the last song on the album. So, and those songs, like, especially if you're listening, gapless playback on Spotify, or I think Apple Music has it now too as well too. So if you're running the gapless playback together, this album like loops really well together. So if you just play the album all the way through, first song, last song, I'm pretty sure the first and the last song are like the same song, inner loop, sample, whatever as well too. So again, just kind of like seamlessly flows. You could run the album on loop for forever. And again, it would just flow perfectly. And that's kind of what I've been doing all day today that it's been released. And I started it, as you do when they release an album, go back, listen to Renaissance a little bit, listen to Lemonade. Like the definitely am gonna be on a Beyonce kick for a second here. But this was a fun listen too. Got to fire this one up when we were at the gym. And like I said, pretty much saved most of the songs into the playlist. So I guess I'll say a lock for album of the year. I think no surprise that it would live up. And would this be, I'm gonna guess that this would just debut at number one and be her 8th studio album in a row, 8th solo whatever studio album in a row that would debut at number one. So I'm pretty sure that that would be a record as well too, which I think she might already have that streak record as well. So just I'll be curious to see what kind of stratosphere this will propel her into, and then what the conversation is going to be around this album once we get to award season next year. I mean, she doesn't care about it and she doesn't have to, like we said, but it'll just be interesting to see. I guess if she gets it, does she go? Like, does she accept the award now after this? Is there just like a big, again, she's already saying like screw the Grammys in the lyrics. So is she just like, if she gets nominated and they do end up giving her the award for album of the year, does she just say, hey, screw the Grammys, I don't need this, it's not really what this is about anyways? That'd be kind of great after they gave Jay-Z the Lifetime Achievement Award, and then she's just like, nah, that industry doesn't mean anything. But it's a word. It's not like they I think he would understand, but I don't think he would care that much either. And like he was saying anyways, she has a case to do it and say screw you. So we'll see where this goes with the award season, because honestly, like, I think that's what everybody was I think everybody was just like, yeah, this album is going to be, it's Beyonce, this album is going to be awesome. It is awesome. And I think it's just like, okay, let's see now what this does against the field. But the Metro Boomin album and the Future album also dropped a couple of weeks ago. Also a fun listen. And this is one, again, I'm really curious to see what Sam thinks about this, because Metro Boomin and Future are definitely my guys as well too. But I mean, Metro Boomin is like on Sam's Mount Rushmore. I think Metro Boomin might be like Sam's favorite. Drake's his favorite. I think Metro Boomin would be in that top 4. And he was saying too that Without Warning was in, that Mount Rushmore of non-Drake albums. So like Metro Boomin is really one of his guys in like a Jason Tatum type way. So I would be curious to see where he would rank this album amongst the Metro Boomin albums, and amongst, what his favorite songs are off of this one. Because again, I really enjoy the album. It's a super solid album, but the run that both of those guys have been on the last couple of years, where you got Metro Boomin drops Heroes and Villains last year, or 2 years ago, he drops it in December of 2022. But in last year's award cycle for the Grammys, gets nominated for Best Hip Hop Album of the Year, and really is just like technically, like Sam said, it was I think Without Warning and Heroes and Villains both are in his top. Again, his top. All when we're talking hip hop for him, it's non-Drake, because Drake for him is just number one. But it's in that mix of top non-Drake hip hop albums. So he really achieved something technically in that album that I just, producer wise, albums dropped by producer, I think it's one of the best of all time. But it's, what is his follow-up going to be to that? And Future as well too in the industry has kind of become a Grammy go-to guy. I think he's been nominated, I would say, just trying to remember off the top, for the last 5 years in some way. He's been nominated on either an album of his own, or a song, or a feature artist on an album. Anytime Future pops up now in recent years, the industry is watching, and he's been kind of automatic with this stuff. And especially after the album with Wait For You on it, and that whole song, and that won an award at the Grammy, there's like best melodic rap performance or whatever. That album got nominated. He's on the DJ Khaled album. So again, another industry automatic guy. So when these guys started together, Future and Metro Boomin, like, that was definitely not the case. And we get DS2, we get a bunch of the early work. These guys again have definitely made that rise where they were certified. Future was already more solidified. Again, a certified dude, but now he's like again, an industry guy, and Metro Boomin has broken through into that as well too. So now that they've joined back together as industry guys, it was like, okay, this album has more hype, and this album has hype in a real kind of way. And again, it's not just, hey, as every album now that it gets dropped can that be nominated, but this album is, again, I think has a not just a bar of quality, but a bar of these guys. The industry is looking at them, and I think they both brought B+ performances. Would be my take. That's too hard. I would say, well, B+ being like 80, 88, like Madden ratings of 88. Who's a 2K rating? Who's got? Let's look up 2K ratings right now and just see what level of player I would give the Metro Boomin album, because the Beyonce album is it's a Giannis, it's a Jokic, a Jokic would be. Is it a Jokic? I guess album of the year. I guess Jokic is like, oh, okay, now we're talking. This guy could be like top 10 of all time if he gets another title or two. I mean, Beyonce, yes, but this album specifically, I don't know if I would put it in my personal top 10 of all time. But like I said, I super enjoyed it. But I'm digging myself in a hole. So we've got Jalen Williams from OKC is an 88. Okay. But Jalen Williams, is that Desmond Bain at 88, Drew Holiday? So we were just raving on Drew Holiday. I think 88 might be a good 2K. Oh, wait. Nope. I'm looking at 3-point shooting attribute. Not the overall player rating. Jalen Williams, an 88 3-point shooter. I mean, he's 43% this year. So makes sense that he's up near the top 10. But let's see. I would imagine he's got to be close to that in the actual just rating. Oh, so we've got Jamal Murray at an 88. Kristaps Porzingis, Karl Towns, Bam Adebayo, Tyrese Maxey, LaMelo Ball. Whoa, Wemby's already an 89. Yeah, I think that seems about right. Drew Holiday, 86. Jalen Williams, 85. Jalen Williams is an 85 and LaMelo Ball's an 88. Trae Young is an 89 and Jalen Williams an 85. 2K, are you watching the games this year? Are you watching the games? Zion's an 89. De'Aaron Fox. Bam Adebayo. I feel like this album is Bam Adebayo's season this year. Maybe Jimmy Butler's. I think it was fantastic. They both did what they were both amazing at, but I don't think they necessarily both leveled up in a way or showcased anything super new. I think we've got, consistent old Metro Boomin and consistent old Future, and I think we got some really good hits off of it in a really memorable album, and an album that's going to be good to listen to, but I don't think we've got a breakthrough album in the way Heroes and Villains was. And that's, I don't want to necessarily, that it's tough to sit here and criticize and be like, or not necessarily criticize it even by saying that it's like Heroes and Villains. I'm just, if we're putting it in the list of albums and just ranking them against each other, I don't think that album is as good as that. And that's a high bar to clear. And I'd be curious to see if this would pass, Without Warning or some of the other, Savage Mode with Metro Boomin, some of the other Metro Boomin collab albums that he's done. But my top songs, I was going to say top 5, but we know it's not going to be 5. So my top group of songs, I'll just throw this one as a bonus in. The bonus song at the end, I really like. Where My Twin At? If I'm being honest, that one might just be in my top 5. But since it's a bonus song, I guess we'll make it a bonus edition. We've also got the album is We Don't Trust You. The first song is We Don't Trust You. I really do like the first song as well. That's solid listen. Claustrophobic is a solid listen. And these songs are back to back on the album, so I had them together kind of in one spot on the list as well too. Cinderella with that's a Travis Scott feature, and Running Out of Time. Cinderella is really good. I really like that one. Yeah, I really do. Looking at my list, I really do like the bonus song. That's gonna be one of the songs I listen to the most off of this album. But I think the top two for me are pretty easy. Number two, I don't know if this is controversial. Number two, I've got the Kendrick Lamar verse, the Kendrick Lamar feature like that. And I've got Everyday Hustle at number one. And that's just like more my type of song. That's really where we got Metro Boomin, soul sampling. A lot of this album, he like samples some old Future songs, some old Future and Drake songs. I guess I say old, but when we're talking about samplings, he's really sampled a bunch of newer stuff. But for this one, we got a classic old song. I want to say that song is also called I'll Wait for You. And I want to say the person that did it was, and this is just off the top, trying to remember the name, Alfreda Brockington. I want to say it was Alfreda Brockington that did the song that Metro Booming covered on, or sampled, sorry, on Everyday Hustle. Let me double check on Spotify real quick. I believe, though, you can quote me by saying it's, Alfreda Brockington. Okay, Brockington was right. Alfreda Brockington is the song that Metro Boomin samples. Everyday Hustle. Rick Ross is featured on the song. And when they dropped the album on Spotify, so I, again, listened to this basically the morning after it dropped, and they didn't have the features listed on Spotify yet. So I didn't realize that Rick Ross was going to be on the song until we got the Maybach music. And that's, the same. I didn't, Kendrick Lamar, when he came in with his verse, that was incredibly exciting as well, too. But just I guess I'll say the beat on Everyday Hustle is the best beat on the album. And yeah, I think the best verses on the album are going to be on Like That. Kendrick Lamar goes pretty crazy. And I haven't really looked into what the conversation has been around the big three right now, because the biggest thing out of this album is going to be Kendrick Lamar dissing the big three and taking a shot at first person shooter mode on his verse. And I got to be honest, like, I still think J. Cole is winning this battle. And I know I'm a J. Cole guy, and I don't even think it's really a battle. Like, the thing is, Kendrick knows what he's doing. Like, people act like he didn't drop, is that Control that he does with Big Sean back in the day, where he just names everybody? Like, Kendrick Lamar knows how to play the game. He knows what he's doing, and he is a real dude too. So he's not messing around. Like, he is, he takes his craft very seriously, and he takes his ability to, that mama mentality, that ability to not just be successful at your craft, but that ability to bury your opponents. Like, he is, I believe, competitive in that way, and takes all that stuff very, very seriously. But I still think that the best verse about this, if we're talking, hey, the first person shooter mode versus this song, I still think the J. Cole verse on first person shooter mode is a better verse than Like That, the Kendrick Lamar verse. I mean, I get it. Like, screw the big three. There's just a big me. Like, okay, we know Kendrick. We know what Kendrick is capable of. So I think this is a great verse. But I think if Kendrick was gonna, especially right now, diss the big three, or I guess I'm using diss, but we get how we're saying it, right? We like make a statement about the big three. Like, if he was gonna do that, I don't even know why I'm tiptoeing around it too. Like, it's the rap game. Who cares? If he disses the big three, like, I feel like Kendrick is a little more capable than that. And again, I still feel like what J. Cole was able to put out first person shooter mode was still the best. But I think the song is fantastic. I've been listening to it a ton, and I think that and Everyday Hustle are easily the top two off of the album. And the minute we get, like, any like pitched up soul sample is like, the minute we get that fired up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely my favorite song. Should we just start playing that one right now? I guess we have to wait a couple of minutes because this Spurs game is still finishing up. I don't even want to update the score because unfortunately the Knicks have the lead, and my feed's even a little bit behind too. So let's catch up the feed really quickly and see how bad it's gotten. Oh no. Oh, it's close. Oh, Wemby with the and one. Oh no, not an and one. Just a layup, but he's at the free throw line right now. So that was an old highlight for something else. Wemby at the free throw line, down 2 with 24 seconds left. I think we have to live watch Wembanyama to end the game. We'll see what happens, and then we'll get to watching the March Madness. I guess, hey, we can at least fire up some March Madness since our guy Sam's not going to be here. Wemby with the first free throw, it's in, and now it's a 1-point game. But I mean, if he makes this, it's going to be tied, and Brunson's going to have the last shot. And let's take a look at Brunson's stats here real quick. Brunson is at... The Spurs have just had some guys have a couple of games. Brunson's at 59 points right now. I mean, Brunson is going to hit this shot. There's just... make no mistake about it. Brunson's getting to 60. They couldn't stop him for the first 59. They're not going to stop him for the next 60. I mean, he's going to get the foul at, if anything. They gave up 20 to DiVincenzo. Hart's almost got a triple-double. Did Wemby get the triple-double territory? Wemby with 35. So we're going to have to go back and really lock in on this second half. This is going to be a fun rewatch. Keldon Johnson still managing to have a good game. Wemby 35, 17, and 7. Can you have 3 assists in 24 seconds and get a triple-double? I guess if we get overtime, then maybe a Wemby triple-double is still on the table. But, you know, a win against a playoff Knicks team, honestly, it's not even just wins against certain teams at this point. It's like, can we win in close games? Because I feel like close games have been where that's really, I mean, you know, yeah, we get it. Getting blown out is obviously not good. And they've had their moments where they've really let games slip in, you know, second and third quarters and let games get away from them. But some of the close gameness stuff this year has been like, okay, they are a couple of pieces away from being a potentially pretty good team. And a lot of that has been, you know, early in the season, revolving stuff around Wembanyama and his growth. And they really are now becoming super reliant on Wemby's development, which is a good thing. And that's what we were saying they were need to do. But again, that just means as Wemby grows, the team grows. So you just have to wait for, you know, that to happen. And he's at the free throw line, hits his 2 shots. He's got his 35 tonight. And can you just put him on Brunson? Can he just guard Brunson one-on-one? We've got Trey Jones. So no Sohan on Brunson. I know that's a move Pop likes to make. Sometimes stick Sohan on the perimeter guy. Maybe they're anticipating a switch and they just want to see if they can get Brunson to go one-on-one. And that's exactly what he's going to do. Oh, he's going to kick it out to the 3 for the tie. No good. We're going to get overtime. So I think overtime, Spurs Knicks is my sign to get out of here. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for staying tuned to the feed. Like we said, Rem and Sam podcast on basically any platform, whether you're looking for podcast, you know, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Rem and Sam podcast. If you're trying to watch this on YouTube, Rem and Sam podcast. If you're trying to find clips on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, Rem and Sam podcast. We're going to be out there. So shout out to you guys for following, and shout out to our guy, Sam. We'll look forward to be back with him next week. And shout out to our friends at Pure Vita. Shout out DRF Sportsbook. Shout out BetStamp. I'm going to have to go shop around for these Elite 8 odds on BetStamp. See what I can find. Best money line. Because make no mistake, BetStamp is the best place to do that. I want to say it might even be the only place to do that too, but I haven't even looked to see if there's another competitor because I haven't even need to. BetStamp's the best one. Okay, I'm jumping in from the future because overtime is over. The Spurs have won. Yeah, Jalen Brunson did get to 60, but Wemby put up a 40 and 20. Wemby is unstoppable. And if the Knicks fans get upset and say Wemby fell down and didn't get called for travel at the end of I get it, but you know, Brunson did take a tough step back 3 at the end of the game and he's been getting to the rim. Basically, you know, the whole time I was peeking in, he was getting to the rim whenever he wanted. He took that tough step back 3. So, you know, hey, Knicks fans, it all evens out. Shout out to Wemby. I mean, this guy's like a WWE superstar. He's getting on the mic afterwards. Basically, after every time they win, he's on the mic. He's hyping up Spurs fans. He's dapping up the press guy on the side. Everybody's a big happy family. He's going to go pop a Corona with Vin Diesel after this. I might see if I can jump. I might slide in the DM, see if I can join him. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.